Hello, Data Standard community. I'm your host, Shayna Weldon, and this is the Data Standard audio experience. We have a very exciting guest today. On our podcast, we have Nelson Tsaku, a digital business intelligence analyst for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution at Cox Enterprise. Cox drives new waves of innovation in the communication and automotive industries, and Nelson has specialties in machine learning, big data analytics, and ETL pipelines. Welcome to the show, Nelson.
Thank you for the good introduction, Shinya. It's a pleasure talking with you at this point in time.
Thank you. I am so excited to get to know you better. And to start off, can you please just introduce yourself?
Sure. It's a pleasure talking with you at this point in time, Shania. And first, I just wanted to clarify, I'm no longer with Cox. It's been a month already as I look forward to an advancement in career. But of course, my experience in the midst of Cox is I'm very happy to share with you what I've been doing, especially as this podcast is prior to it. So I will just give a brief summary as an introduction, as a one-sentence description of me, who is this data-savvy individual who takes pleasure in bridging the gap between customers and products with insightful decision-making for stakeholders to always look forward to maximizing revenue and engagement, for instance, while minimizing cost.
Yeah, I like that. Product and customer, and you're right in the middle. So how did you first become involved in your industry?
So it starts things from my background, academic and even educational. So analytics started back from my childhood when I was already trying to make sense out of the numbers in the stores stored in registers to support my mother's poultry firm. My mother has a poultry firm, and we looked into registering things in registers a little bit manually, and I was already intrigued by that. So the big data analytics aspect of things came into play during my capstone project and my bachelor's, actually. And the title of this was Predicting College Dropouts. So here, this project actually entailed wrangling data prior to students, and this data was in huge amounts, and it literally served as a point of entry for me in the big data space, because the project was to help stakeholders who were the advisors, academic advisors in this case, to be able to make insightful decisions and give good orientations for students in their courses and in their school career as to choosing the right faculty to continue majoring in. So that is how I started being involved in the big data space. And from here, I had a good number of instructors that were interested in this project. For instance, it ended up being the third place best capstone project for the year 2017. And I literally captured the interest of my instructor at that time, who was the instructor for the big data analytics course. And so I directly improved my career with a master's degree in big data analytics, majoring from computer science. So that said, I do have a number of publications in terms of research and in terms of articles also that speaks to big data analytics, ranging from the medical field to business fields. So my sojourn as a researcher, for instance, and graduate students was resourceful and fruitful as well with these research publications and articles, which I definitely look forward to sharing.
Wow. Yeah, it's always nice to hear how people became involved in data science or how they got to where they are. And it was interesting to hear you and about your mom and this predicting college dropouts. So regarding your job, what exactly do you do as a business intelligence analyst and engineer?
Right. So I will briefly summarize it just in 4 main steps, what I do as business intelligence engineer. So first is creating self-service tools for stakeholders, right, to make insightful decisions. The second part of it is identifying and generating key performance indicators for trend monitoring, right, and decision making. Given that when there is a lot of data out there, the ability to identify the signal out of noise is key. The third here is conducting research and leveraging statistical techniques for customer segmentation and product positioning. Again, as I previously talked to you about bridging the gap between products and customers or clients. Then the fourth is providing descriptive, predictive or prescriptive analytics for informed decision making. So these are the four main qualifiers or direction givers of what I do as business intelligence. And as engineer, it entails coming up with tools, right? Or scripts, or let's say stepwise algorithms in order to carry this from end to end and provide a solution deployable for related stakeholders.
I know data is really prevalent in your field, and data literacy can be a huge hindrance to building data-driven companies. So How can companies work towards being data literate?
So definitely, especially in this era when there's a lot of data, as you rightly said, there is the need to be able to channel the right data to be accessed by the right person, and for that person to make the right thing out of the data. So I can just split this into two main aspects in order to enhance data literacy in a company. The first thing will be to enable data democratization, right, through functional governance structures. So you should be able to segment all the people in the corporate as to this is what you're doing and this is the accesses you do have, for instance. And the second part is now establishing a training platform, for instance, where related stakeholders or related users of the data can learn how to use the relevant tools.
And then regarding a data science problem, what's the step-by-step process to solving this problem? No matter what the problem is there a general key step-by-step process?
Sure. There are a lot, prior to my experience when I started, there are a lot of step-by-step processes, but with time, it's getting to being concretized. And my advice will be to follow a generally known step process that will enable you communicate easily with others out there in the world. When you want to express an opinion or to express a step process, for instance, if you use a convention that is already known, then you are way out there. Being able to easily understood. So I will go in for the CRISP DM model actually, which is a conventional approach. Hence, it enhances understanding, right? And the later, that is the CRISP DM model, can be sectioned into 6 main steps. The first, you have the business understanding, you have data understanding, you have data preparation, you have modeling that comes into play, you have evaluation, then you have your results. So following these steps, for instance, you can be able to solve any form and kind or structure of a data science problem.
Okay, and it's called the CRISP DM
model.
Okay, CRISP DM model. To explain data science lifecycle.
Exactly.
Okay, very interesting. So how do you identify results, choose a model, and deploy and evaluate a model?
So this is a good question. It's a very good one because it's definitely key questions to answer whenever you want to address a business problem. It gives you direction and also constrains you onto what to do exactly to have a problem solved. So in order to identify results, for instance, so I would say I identify results the moment it answers or solutions the business problem. If something solutions the business problem, then it is a result for it. And to choose a model, I chose it by identifying the category in which the business problem lies. Again, if you remember the CRISP DM model, we talked about the first step is identifying the business problem, right? So when you have the business problem, if you want to qualify if something is a result or not, the moment if what you are trying to qualify answers to that business problem, then it is a potential result. And the model is chosen by categorizing the business problem. Is it a classification model? Is it a regression model? Is it an unsupervised or supervised learning model? I mean, the business problem, how does it categorize in the various kind of problems we do have in the data science and analytics space? That is how you do choose your model. And we can definitely expand from there as much as possible, depending on the stakeholders' knowledge of the business problem. Now, the models are deployed based on the tools available to convey information, right? And how literate the stakeholders are to those tools. If you remember, the great question you asked prior was how to enhance data literacy in the company. Now, depending on how literate a company is, you can see what kind of tools you can leverage in order to attend to such a business problem and in order to deploy your model. It can range from data warehouses to data lakes or to a simple database, depending on the structure of your company. Now, to evaluate your model, there are various evaluation techniques out there in the world, and the evaluation technique used generally depends on the model type and whether it provides an optimal solution to the business problem or not. I will take a simple example. So you can have a model type, which is a classification type. That means the business model is looking forward to classifying of class, let's say binary classification 0 or 1. And so you can go, you will already be constrained into a set of evaluation techniques, right? Could be moving from accuracy, precision, recall, or maybe F1 score. And now to have an optimal solution for your business problem, you could either decide to focus on recall or precision. So that is how I look forward to evaluating a model. Does it answer your questions?
That was good. No, yes. Thank you for your insight. I'm just listening to what you have to say. I do want to go back to the CRISP DM. Can you please explain that a little bit further?
Oh, yeah. The CRISP DM model stands for Cross-Industry Standard Process for data mining. So as the name says, as the acronym says, it's a standard process that is out there in the world already for you to kind of follow in order to help other data scientists easily convey with you and make sure they just target the end, right? And not look as to how do you do this, how do you do that? It's just a structured out there in the world that helps enable understanding. So that said, given the 6 steps we just described, the CRISP DM model is a great feature and it's of great use to promote a common language for data scientists and enhance communication, reproducibility, and efficiency. I would say, for instance, the CRISP DM model is similar to the data science problem-solving cycle, just as the software development cycle is for software developers. If that is a good analogy.
Okay, got that one. Okay, wow. Is there a greatest challenge in your industry that you see?
A great challenge in the industry that I see. I would say the first one I had, which I saw, which is getting solved, was the big data boom. Like there was a lot of data and there was need to come up with resources to be able to process that data. But now we are in an era where the resources are already available to process this huge amount of data. We do have CUDA, for instance, NVIDIA that comes in with the parallel processors to be able to process in parallel huge chunks of data. We do have systems such as data lakes, from data warehouses to data lakes, to be able to analyze data in real time. That said, there are features out there already that helps you address the velocity variety aspect of big data. So the main issue now for me, I think, is being able to curate data and identify the signal out of the noise. That is the main challenge in the industry. And one pitfall is that a lot of industries, or let's say a lot of people, think the moment you have big data, then you have a solution to a problem, which is not necessarily true. You can also use a small data set, but the moment it is efficient enough, well cleaned up and curated, you can still attain to the same result. So I would say that is a challenge, to identify the signal out of the noise.
Oh, ending it with a challenge. I like it. So for more information on the data standard, you can find us at www.datastandard.io. Also, this episode was sponsored by Pandio, and they're innovating the tech space, and you can learn more about their work at pandio.com. But Nelson, thank you for joining us. And where can we find you? Are you on LinkedIn?
Sure, I'm on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is just my first name and my last name, Tsaku Nelson. At this stage, I would say giving back to the community is of tremendous importance, not only to grow relevant networks, right, but also to master the concept and to master the field. So I do have a good number of relevant research publications and articles, which I wouldn't mind sharing, And
Please do.
Hence, I'll be glad seeing the community reaping the fruits out of this. So I do have a LinkedIn. I also do have a Twitter account. I will definitely send it back to you directly after our interview.
And you have publications?
Yeah, I do have 2 major publications, which you will definitely find interesting. One is recommendation engines, boosting recommendation engines using an offline evaluation metric approach. So this paper was actually published at ACM in 2018. and it's out there already. And another one is also on bioinformatics. It's actually a machine learning texture-based approach to be able to detect cancer from stomach epithelial cells. So if you remember at the beginning of the talk, I talked to you moving from the bioinformatic space right to business space. So the second paper I just mentioned is much more in bioinformatics, which is biology, and the first, which is boosting recommendations, speaks to the business understanding phase. So now, for instance, using recommendation engines, you can think of Netflix, for instance, and the Funk SVD model that is being used to recommend movies. You can think of Amazon, for instance, the technologies and the tools they use to recommend other products for people who bought some other products. Also recommending things to people who had friends, doing cross and buy product recommendations. Just a part of it.
Wow, this is so great. And then where can we find your publications?
If you get to my LinkedIn, which I will definitely share with you, in the introduction, you have the name of the two papers, and you have the publications, and you have the dates. And also in the publications section of LinkedIn, you can also see the two links of the two main publications there. There are 5 of them overall, but those first 2 give a brief summary.
Okay. Well, sounds great. And thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Sure. It was my pleasure, Sheena.
Yeah. And thanks for sharing your insight. I learned a lot from speaking with you. So thank you.
No problem. You have a good one.
You too.